Hello, hello, hello. I'm Andrea Stevens,
And I'm Jeanette Mejias, and we are Web's Women.
where exposure brings strength. Hello, we're pre-recording here. Hello, my friend. We have a guest. This is a good week. What is going on?
Hey, Andrea, good to see you. I'm excited as well for our guest and friend who we're going to welcome back
Hmm.
to
Hi,
talk.
is,
Yeah.
is that my cue to say
Yeah,
something?
sorry, I have a little delayed here. I'm a little delayed here.
I thought you were going to give us the episode number. I was like waiting for something
No, no,
logistically going on here.
no. So welcome, Rosann. We're so happy that you're here with us tonight.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So Rosann has been with us multiple times. Um, Rosann is the owner of a rescue farm in New Jersey, in Tewksbury, New Jersey. And if anyone has seen all of my pictures, I post more of her animals than her. So you will see Celestial Acres. But tonight, though, we have Rosann, and we're talking tonight about addiction and addiction and relationships and some of the things that I know off camera and off recording. We've talked about some of her experiences. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about that, hopefully to bring some attention to the topic, and maybe it will help someone that is in a certain type of a relationship, whether they want to stay in it and move forward or get out of it. How, we're going to talk a little bit about some of those things and what goes on within that dynamic. So, Rosann, hi.
Hello, hello.
So I know we talked about this, but I don't even know where to begin. So where do you want to begin with it?
Well, I'll just, I guess, start by listing the types of addicts that I have been in relationships with. Um, it started, when I was, 19 years old. I dated a couple guys that, started off, you know, smoking, just weed and hashish. Dated a guy in Italy that started with that, and they were selling, and sometimes they would get other things and to sell, and they wouldn't sell it, so then they would just consume it,
Mm.
which then became further escalated into addictions of cocaine, and other acid and other things that weren't that great. Um,
Was that in Italy at the time?
One of them was here in the US and one
Mm.
of them was in Italy, yeah.
Mm.
Um, the one in I didn't even know the one that was in the US until after we broke up and he called me from rehab. He did, had to do the 12 steps, and one of them is to, call up and apologize to those that you might have hurt. And that's when I actually found out. Um, he would sneak away to use the bathroom quite frequently, and he was actually going into the bathroom and doing hits of cocaine while we were dating. So, um, I've you definitely question things after that. You've become a little bit more attentive to when people, are doing things out of the norm. You should really think of, I guess I've built this kind of secondary gut instinct, like intuition, that if it doesn't feel right, it
Mm.
probably isn't right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, they might not have done something to hurt me personally, but it did affect the relationship, obviously, because they both ended.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, the one that was in rehab, did you even know he went to rehab or that there was a problem, or until after he called you and then realized?
like we stayed in touch, and after we broke up, and it wasn't until, he was in rehab. I might have heard through the grapevine he went to rehab, but I wasn't expecting a call from him explaining to me that, because I had no idea. Whereas the one in Italy, it was like a long distance relationship, so that was a little bit harder. And he did at one point um, the drugs and the drinking, because he was an alcoholic as well. But then he became almost addicted to me. Like, I took over the addiction, and then it became a very controlling type relationship. So that's another thing, is sometimes an addict will take what their addiction and turn it into a different addiction, they think is a little bit healthier of an addiction. But it can be just as damaging. So it's tough in relationships, that's for sure.
And that started to when you were young.
So yeah, those were my first two like relationships. Like I said, I was 19 and 20 for those two. Yeah.
So then moving forward, as you got older into your 30s, do I say 40s?
Well, well, when I was only 25 when I got married, and my husband at the time, he was just a casual social drinker. Didn't think much of it. And he started, I think he like would lose his jobs. He would go into a little bit of a depression. The drinking would happen a little bit more. Eventually he hurt himself on the job, and to compensate for the I guess to numb the pain of whatever was hurting him, he would drink more, which would send him more into a depression. Then he started getting paranoid and had super anxiety and didn't want to go out. Kind of, resorted to closing himself into the garage and just sitting there smoking and drinking, and or in his office on the computer. So it's I mean, and at the time, I can't say I gave him as much attention, because I was also raising our children and they took priority. But I guess I found it to be, I would, blame him for his own problems, which I guess anybody should. But I wasn't there to help get him out of that hole either, because I was just too busy myself trying to raise the kids and doing what was best for my kids. So, so we ended up getting divorced after 13 years. I spent 10 years raising the kids pretty much on my own. And finally, he hit like rock bottom. He was on the verge of going homeless. He moved in with my 19-year-old son, and gave up drinking, and he's back to his old self. So it took him hitting rock bottom to realize that his family was there, always there to help him, but we weren't going to let him drag us down with him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then how many years from the time that you got divorced to the time that he figured out that he could help himself or hit rock bottom? Like, how much time in between that?
It was 10 years that he pretty much was,
Mm.
suffering from depression and not getting help. And yeah, so it was 10 years until he pretty much had not much of a relationship with his children. So now he's finally, he's been here for 3 months maybe now.
And he's staying on the farm there. So he's
Yeah,
staying
so
he's everything is.
he's living in the apartment with my son on our farm. It's detached from the house, so I just
So your relationship must be better than it's ever been.
it definitely has been. We were all out there, pulling weeds out together, all the six of us, me, him, and the four kids, and he's cracking jokes, we're listening to music, and yes, we hadn't had like a family day like that in,
Yeah.
in almost 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a positive outcome there,
It was, but it took him, it took him 23 years of, messing up his marriage, and
Mhm.
living by himself pretty much for 10 years. So he'll never get those years back with his family, with his kids.
Right.
Um,
Right. I think,
it's my kids don't have really, my daughters especially, I got divorced, they were only 4. They hardly have any memories with their father.
yeah, because they were very little.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that he's been very fortunate that he's still here because
Oh.
know that the stories for folks who suffer from addiction typically don't get out of that.
Mhm.
And it really ends, their story ends quite differently. And
Yeah.
although he did lose his family, but it's nice to know that he's in a space where, he can continue to, live a new chapter.
Right. I mean, there were definitely parts in our relationship when I was married that the depression was so bad. I worried about coming home some days and finding something I didn't want to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something I probably tipped me over with the kids. I was like, heaven forbid my kids have to walk in and get traumatized to find something, um,
Mm.
like that. And I was like, I'm not putting my kids into that situation, Um, and that's probably why I kind of, helped pick him up. I mean, it's
Yeah.
causing a huge strain on my current relationship that my ex-husband's living here on the farm. But I can't, I have too big of a heart to now see that my kids are finally have a relationship with their father to just be like, sorry, dude, you're back on the street.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, so it's tough.
Yeah. Well, you're not doing it you're not doing it if you're not doing this for yourself, you're doing this for your kids.
Hmm.
I mean, he's there for your
Yeah.
kids. You know what I mean? So we don't want your kids to see that you would push their father away, so it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. It's really have to, you, I mean, I was wise to get out of it when I got out of it. I probably should have gotten out of the relationship sooner. Um, but but now, like, he finally, I feel like an addict has to realize it on their own. There's no way you can tell them,
Mm.
how to change or what to do. If they don't see with their own eyes that their life sucks and it's in a downward spiral, um,
Mm-hmm.
you have to pick yourself back up. You have to, notice the people around you that love you, that you're going to hurt if something happens, you know, because I mean, when he, when he got literally kicked out of his home, he was given 45 days to get out of the house because it was being put up for sale. And he had nowhere to go, couldn't afford anything, didn't have a job. Um, he he was like, maybe I can see if the state will help me, put me up somewhere, go to a, halfway house. There are other options, he could have resorted to. Um, but I knew, knowing him and his I knew that he would continue drinking. I knew he would have just um he wouldn't have been in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
Being around his kids is the only thing I think keeping him alive.
Right. And part of the healing process too,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know.
and with you too, probably at this point, there's some healing there with what went on, because
Mhm.
I'm sure that now that he's going through this whole process, he feels guilty too for a lot of things,
Mhm.
so it probably helps that you are who you are.
Mhm.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Ro, when you say that when someone does not see it or doesn't think they have a problem, it's very difficult, to come in and try to help someone that you see is losing themselves every minute of,
Yeah.
each hour of the day. Um, and rock bottom looks very different
Mhm.
for everyone.
Yeah.
Me, rock bottom is I lost my wife and my kids. That's rock bottom.
Mhm.
But that still wasn't rock bottom, right?
Yeah.
So I think that this is such a important topic to highlight because it's what the world faces day in, day out. Everyone has someone in their family that's suffering from some type of addiction.
Mhm.
And it's something that's not exposed or talked about. It's just, it is what it is, attitudes, and people kind of just sweep things under the rug. And I think that that's just not, I think mental health and everything else has been silenced. And I think people just don't like to talk about
Mhm.
Mhm.
these things
But in
because it's
addition,
a real thing, right?
and there's so many what they call, the functioning alcoholics. I don't think they're really functioning, in relationships,
Yeah.
They go home and they are mad, they are easily frustrated, agitated,
Mhm.
can't sleep at night, which makes them even worse.
Mhm. Jealous, they get angry quickly. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot involved.
Um, People don't realize how easy, I mean, and you're not just talking about alcohol or drugs or
Mhm.
um, people
Right.
are addicted to everything.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
there's so many, I mean, it could be your phone, it could be work,
It could be sex. It could be everything.
yeah, porn,
Yeah.
Yeah.
big
I
one.
mean, yeah.
Um, it affects people and it's all mental. It's their way to cope and it's not a healthy way to cope. And until people find and figure out that they're just suppressing something with the alcohol,
Mhm.
um,
If it's even, sometimes it's not even alcohol. I mean, really,
or
some people have they're in such depressive states all the time or negative states all the time. And then they start taking, you know, 400 milligrams of Xanax
Mhm.
and they have to keep, I mean, their script goes up and up and up and up with dosage because they keep taking more and more and more to just to cope and bury their feelings. And they bury and suppress everything. But to the world, when they're out in public, right? They function, they're functioning sane people because they're, you know what I mean? They're able to function, I guess, throughout the day with their depression medication. But then they go home to the family, they go home to their friends, they go home to whoever they go home to, their kids, and there's, you know, reactions that take place because you can't be on those medications that it has to wear off at some point,
Mhm.
you know. And as much as these people want to say that they function daily, they only function for the certain amount of time that they can. And then something happens.
Mhm.
Conversations take place, fights take place. You know what I mean? So you bring that stuff home. Even if you try to cope in the world during the day, you bring
Mhm.
that stuff home
Right.
to the people you're closest to.
I think you have to want something different for yourself in your life. I mean,
Yeah.
you have, folks, on a broader lens who are addicted to toxic relationships, whether it's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sexual relationships or even friendships. And you'll always hear someone say, I don't understand why these kind of people come in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a whole host of reasons, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, maybe, folks are in this place of, I feel the need of help. I feel the need of rescue. I feel bad. But some people, believe it or not, are addicted to those type of relationships that are not healthy. And so when they're exposed to something healthy,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like they don't know how to react to that. So
Yeah.
I think that that's just, it's ever evolving when we talk about,
It is.
addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. Even with what you're speaking on now, you the those people too that end up with the mental health, type situations, or they're in, they're the toxicity. If they have that pattern of being with toxic people over and over and over and over, but they don't see it. So it keeps happening and it keeps
Right.
happening. And they may say that person, and then what happens is the person that actually likes the toxic people, right? They like that type of a person. They're drawn to those people for whatever reason. They don't ever look within themselves. It's always everybody else's fault.
And then
Right.
you don't know anything else, right? I mean,
Right.
if
Everybody
I'm
else is
raised,
crazy. Everybody else is the
but
problem.
if I'm raised around toxicity, right? Toxic
Mm.
people all the time, I may not realize I'm around that. You know how sometimes people will say, wow, how many times you hear we all come from dysfunction, right?
Yeah.
Dysfunctional families, everybody has it.
Yeah.
But you may sometimes you just look, you chuck it up to say it, that's just the way it is, and I think that really we have to shift that narrative and have that awareness to say, this is not okay. This is not
Mhm.
acceptable. This is, I cannot live with someone who, you know, is toxic or struggling. You could try to assist, but I can only imagine, Ro, in thinking about you sharing starting at a young age, like the impact that it had on you. Um, having this exposure, to partners who suffered from addiction, because it does do something, it does, you carry it with them in some way too. It does affect. It's like a
Well,
ripple.
luckily I had the common sense that I never got involved in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was never one to cave into peer pressure because it was always offered to me. I just always said no. And I guess that was just part of I don't know, I had a strong willpower at that point. Can't say I have the same at now. For some reason, at the age of 19, and I could tell people no more than I can now. But yeah, it definitely was eye-opening. But I realized that I didn't have to be included in the group. I didn't have to do what everybody else was doing. They liked me just the same. And I feel like a lot of people, especially young adults now, even some adults, I mean, just because your friends are drinking and doing stuff doesn't mean you have to. The whole thing of fitting in. If you're having a good time without it, or you should figure out a way to have fun without it. And that's what I always brought my kids up saying, like you can be the life of the party without doing stupid stuff. Granted, my son likes to, you know, hurt himself, and roll like quads and stuff. He'll do stupid stuff like that, but he won't be like drinking or doing drugs. But he that's another story. It's a different podcast. But
Roseanne, I want to ask a question.
uh-huh.
Like throughout this time, because remember how we say that we're attracted to certain types of people, right?
Mhm.
Like, it pumps, I guess, it could be whatever. Or the people are kind of drawn to you for whatever reason. Do you feel like it was a pattern from the time you were young throughout your adulthood that you found those people were always,
Well,
I
I think,
guess, when
I
you
think
chose those
Jeanette
people, or they?
Jeanette is right, because I was always been like an empath, and I was always like thought I could save people and rescue them, and
Mhm.
so I feel like I was, yeah. See,
That's
Jeanette's
what I was just
Same,
gonna
right.
say.
same,
Like,
same.
I mean, here I am. I started a sanctuary. I've got 100 animals, for heaven's sake. I'm always thinking about, you know, saving people. But yeah, it gets to the point where one day, like I'm almost 50. I'm like, who's there to save me? You know, like I'm
Amen.
tired of saving
Amen.
everybody. Like,
That's a whole lot right there. Who's
you
there
know,
to save me? That's
That's a whole other podcast
that's profound. Who's
episode.
there to save me? I love that.
Hmm.
so it gets after a while, you're just like, you know what? I'm keep trying to correct other people, and like I think I shared with Andrew once, like I see people with their potential, but if they don't see the potential that for themselves, then why is it my job to point it out to you? Like you're screwing your life up, you're drinking excessively, you have an attitude, you are instantly annoyed at every little thing, and I'm tired of it. Like I have no problem telling people to go stick it where the sun don't shine, you know, like at this point, like here's a reality check. You drink too much. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
and I'm not tolerating it, you
And
know. Like,
sometimes it takes time to get to that point. You know what I mean? Like I'm a fixer.
mhm.
I'm a fixer. I always want to fix everything, and I can make it work. I can make this work. Why can't we? Why I could have this friendship? It could work out just fine. I'm a fixer, right? How am I going to make it happen? But you can't.
But
You
I think
can't.
as
You
you
have
get,
to take care of yourself. That's
yeah,
the
and I
bottom
think as
line.
you get older, you know, you're wiser, right? You hope, right, that you get wiser, but you do get to a place where you're like, yeah, no, like to Rose's point, like I'm not gonna like continue. Like maybe there was one point that you had uh, more of a threshold. And that threshold just starts to get less
Yeah.
and less because like, I find with empaths, like it's exhausting
Hmm.
to care and wonder and feel. And if people can't self-correct, you're worrying about, well, how can I, if plan A didn't work, B, C, how can I present it to like it's tiring and all you could do is what you can do and then just, you know,
Hmm.
yeah, let go of the wheel. Like let Jesus take the wheel at that point. Because,
Yeah.
like at
But you
what
have to
point,
sometimes walk. You can't just leave it, you know.
right? Like and
You
it's
have to
at
be
the
like, that's
cost
it.
of you, right? So yeah.
It takes a lot of support. You know what I mean? To walk away from all of whatever you're walking away from. And there's probably multiple dynamics involved in that, whether there's kids, whether there's other family, whether there's people living there that shouldn't be living in your house, whatever it is. You know what I mean? It takes a lot to walk, and you need a good support system to make sure that you stay on track too. Cause,
Yeah.
you know, so you get sucked back in.
Yeah, you have to have somebody like there to, you know, hold you accountable,
Mm-hmm.
make a decision,
Yeah.
see it through. Um, because a lot of them are narcissists and they'll talk you out of it.
Yep.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. 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 And I think turning on yourself, you start to turn on yourself when that happens too. When someone looks at you and they point the finger at you and they make you think it's your fault and you're crazy and
yeah,
then you
yes.
start thinking, am I? Am I being an asshole? I'm not helping them. Like I'm not helping them. So now I'm the asshole. And then you start wondering, am I? Right. And then you start questioning, well, maybe I am. And then you stay longer, right? And you stay in that situation because you start to feel they make you believe you're the problem, right? So there's so much involved with that too.
Yeah, they also make you feel unworthy, like you'll never get somebody better. Um, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they've killed your self-esteem usually at that point because it's been
Right.
years of them just trampling all over you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it takes a lot to build the courage to say I've had it. I'm done. I'm walking away from this relationship. If you're not going to fix yourself, it's not my job to do it. And I'm tired of asking you, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, there is sometimes that they'll turn around, you know.
Hmm.
you know.
That's the only thing that you can pray for in the long run if you can't handle it anymore, whatever the situation is.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because it can just be negativity. It could just be that you can't live in that environment where they're constantly hurting themselves and do not want to get help because they're depressed.
Mhm.
You know, and even, you know, you can try for so long and then you got to step away, you know, but it's hard because you don't know what they're going to do when you do that, right? And then
Right.
it's your fault, right? Is it my fault? Then it's my fault if something happens, you know, because
Mhm.
I wasn't there. And there's a lot. It's a lot. And there's a lot of addiction dynamics to addiction and what people are addicted to. And, you know, and a lot of times when there's a lot of, you know, when there's drug addiction, you know, you tend, or alcohol addiction, the entire family, usually friends and family are all trying to help. There's multiple people out there that are trying to help the situation. And one by one, people start giving up because they don't want to change themselves.
Yeah.
And then
But
you
then
don't know
there
what
are
to do
there are the family dynamics where it's everyone's drinking and they don't see a problem with it.
or that. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you go to a
Yeah.
barbecue and everybody's drinking from noon till midnight, and you know they're all hammered by the end of the night and fighting and arguing, and they
That's
don't.
their no, that's the norm for them.
Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
even know anything different,
Yeah.
which is not healthy.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oof.
This is heavy stuff.
Right. I don't think I've ever been that quiet.
No, I mean, I don't want to say it's heavy, but like, it just makes
Mm.
you really,
Think.
right. It makes you think about, you know, how much someone is in pain and hurt, you know, to take themselves to arrive to that place. I mean, it's just, there's so much to that. And
Yeah.
there's no, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the answer is, to be
Yeah,
honest.
it definitely doesn't happen overnight, and you can't fix it overnight. So
Right.
yeah, it's kind of the same as like if you gained 100 pounds, don't expect to lose it overnight. You know, it's gonna take time to. So for those people that think, you can quit alcohol or quit smoking or, cold turkey, that's usually not the best way to do it. And that's why they have to go to rehab, to get the detox, the right way.
Mhm.
Um, but sometimes it's also about not hanging out with the friends that do it, like
Right. Yeah.
if you're gonna, be proactive and try to slow down your drinking, hanging out with your buddy that drinks all day is not probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That goes with everybody, no matter what, no matter what. You know what I mean? You surround yourself with the people that are going to get you to the next level, no matter what it is.
Mhm.
You know, it goes for addiction, it goes for depression, it goes for me, everybody,
mhm.
you know?
I know, like my boyfriend, his best friend, checked himself into rehab, came out, he was good for a couple weeks, was hanging out with Pete, and then sure enough, I saw him with a beer, and I was like, "Is that a good idea for you to be drinking a beer with your friend that just got out of rehab?" And he's like, "Oh, he's fine, he's fine." Sure enough, a week later, he's out there drinking with him again. Like, maybe you're not the best person for him to be hanging out with, like, and sure enough, after the second time he checked himself into rehab, guess what? He disappeared. He never came back around because he knew he couldn't be around him if he was going to keep drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to respect people if they're going through this time, they're trying to correct themselves. You have to be like,
Mhm.
say, listen, I'm there for you. I'm there to support you. I won't be drinking around you if you are trying to get past this.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
have to be the better person.
That's the right thing to do. I mean,
Yeah.
you can wait until the person leaves and then go have your drink if you
Yeah.
feel you
Right.
need a drink,
Or you
right?
can't go one day without going with a drink, then you
Yeah.
have a problem. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't, support your friend and not drink around him. Then
Yeah.
clearly you have a problem too.
Yeah.
But you mentioned peer pressure. I mean, I think that's so, I can't tell you how many times if I say, I'm not drinking tonight or I'm not gonna have a drink. What?
Yeah.
Why not? Have a drink.
Yeah,
What's the
take a shot. And they put it in front of you. Go, take a
okay?
shot. And
No,
you're
I'm
just like,
good.
I don't feel like taking a
Yeah,
shot.
like I'm good. Like I'm okay. Like, oh, you're lightweight, you can't handle it. And this is how and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, relax. Like it's
Yeah,
not
I'm a
serious.
lightweight and I have to drive. I don't want to drink. Like
Do
it's
you like it? Like why can't you just respect that? And it's no
right.
different than like people who have addiction to, I mean, we can go on and on about addictions. I mean, those who are addicted to food. Why do you have to keep pushing somebody to continue to eat more and more and more? If the person said, I'm good,
Because
stop.
misery loves company.
Right. Bingo. Yes. Yes.
Us Italians are really bad at that. Eat. Just keep eating.
Yeah. Listen, Latino culture is no different. I mean, they forget about it. Like, you know, you ain't gonna see healthy meals at a Latino home. Everything is fried. Everything is
Mm.
just like
Come up in this humble
unhealthy.
abode. You're not going to see any food because I don't like cooking at all for my Italian ass. I don't want to cook at all. You get nothing when you come here. You'll get you'll get a rice cake with peanut butter on it.
Ouch.
Hey, the last time you told me you were going to give me a rice cake, you never did. I went home starving.
I didn't.
Oh,
I was literally hanging out with you for like 6 hours. And I was like, Andrew,
bad
where's that rice
friend.
cake?
Oh my God. You're a bad friend, Andrea.
You know what? We
Was
were
bad at listening.
drinking. That's the
Well,
problem.
there you go.
Yeah, see?
That's the
See?
problem right
And
there.
I did not fix my friend and take care of her stomach. See? Because I wasn't
I
paying
told you.
attention.
Told you I was a lightweight. I got to eat when I drink. Like, where's that rice cake, Andrea?
I'm going to ship you a whole shitload of rice cakes. Oh.
Too much.
Oh. Well, I'm
So
glad. Go ahead.
now I was gonna say, I was gonna ask, so whoever is listening who perhaps a lot of what you have shared, it's resonating with them, like they're in similar situation. Um, what's like the one thing that you feel, what message or what would you like to let others know, um, that they could take away with them and just kind of just think about what you just exposed in your truth, right? You've been exposed to men who suffer from addictions. And, like, what would you say to someone who's kind of stuck in a situation, in a relationship, that they don't know how to move that forward? What do you think that might?
Definitely have that honest conversation, and tell them like I had to tell my boyfriend, like, listen, the drinking is out of control. It's you don't seem to realize it, but by the end of the night,
Mm,
your attitude changes, you're easily frustrated. You start yelling and raising your voice, you don't even notice. Um,
mm,
so like I'm not asking you to completely give up drinking, but I am asking you to stop drinking as soon as you get home from work. Like, like if you there's no need for you to start drinking at lunchtime. Like that's bad. Um, so I said to him, that it's, no drinking before 5 o'clock. If you can't do that, you're putting your drinking ahead of our relationship, then there's no relationship for us to stand on because you're choosing drinking over me. And the drinking makes me uncomfortable. I was in a marriage where I was with an alcoholic, lived with him for 13 years. I'm not going down that road again. So
mm,
if your excessive drinking makes me uncomfortable and you don't respect that, then there's no reason for us to be together. So either get it under control or we're done.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
I think he started to finally see it, because I mean, it took like a year and a half of me complaining about it, until I was like ready to walk out the door. Like, I'm serious. This is not something I take lightly. Like, it makes me uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and if you're not ready to fix it, then it's over.
Mm. And a
Mm.
year is a long time to go, to hope, to have that hope that there's going to be a change.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When you're in a marriage, it lasts sometimes, most of the time it's longer. But when you're dating someone, you know what I mean? That's a year's a long time
Mhm.
Yeah, it
to
is.
try and help, and you know what I mean? And do what you can on your end to help. And then it's a long time.
But I think that directness is
Mm-hmm.
spot on.
Mm-hmm.
And I love your posturing, and it's so important that we, as human beings, women, men, whoever's listening, young adult, whoever is listening to this podcast, do not abandon yourself for others.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Because the minute you negotiate that,
Mm-hmm.
you're abandoning yourself. And
Self-love, baby. Self-love.
it's just important to set that standard. And I
Mm-hmm.
applaud you for that, Ro. And I appreciate you bringing this topic to light. I think that hard conversations, that's exactly it. Like, people like to keep things fun, and, there's nothing wrong with having fun and talking about light topics, but we also have to really expose some of the things that's real and that's
Mm-hmm.
happening day to day, and that hundreds to thousands of people face this exact
Mm-hmm.
situation
Millions. I'd say
every day.
millions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I can go on. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
definitely epidemic, and we have to be very aware um, of that.
Yeah.
Any final closing thoughts?
Mm,
Hmm. Everybody's just gonna go, hmm.
The only thing is, I did look up the definition of addicted. And it's physically and mentally dependent on a particular substance and unable to stop taking it without incurring adverse effects. So,
Mm. Yes.
everyone needs to check in every once in a while and see if they're possibly, like I said, and it's not just drugs and alcohol, but there's a lot. Social media,
Oh, yeah.
Facebook scrolling, telephones,
Yes.
crush,
Mhm.
that's all addictive behavior.
Addictive behaviors, a very long list of things.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And especially if it alters and changes who you are, you know. Yeah.
So
Well,
can't always play the blame game. You have to
mm,
sometimes see if you're also adding to the problem.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
mm, yes. Yes.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. It was nice chatting.
Thank you. Thank you for coming back to
Mhm.
us. We love this conversation. Thank you for bringing this topic to light. And we hope that you will return
Mhm.
about some other topics that speak to your heart. But thank you so much. Andrea, do you have any closing thoughts before we close out?
No, I mean, we said a lot today. We
Yeah.
said a lot.
Yeah. Okay,
There's a lot of takeaways there. So,
for sure. All right.
yeah,
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. And remember, you're listening to Web's Women.
where exposure brings strength.